So yeah, other than having run a hardware store,
We have a new,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
good food.
Yeah.
Did you have clam bellies?
No, we had some octopus, we had a bunch of fish, raw oysters.
well, the way that you've done this in the past is
We went to several Oriental, Asian, or we went to Chinatown and ate one lunch. It's like family style lunch where they just cart everything around. Oh, it was so good. Okay, thank you. Hey,
She brought some to Pam.
Welcome to the May, what does that say, 11th, 2026 Town Council regular budget meeting workshop. So call that meeting to order and move on to item number 2 on the agenda, proposed budget updates and continued discussion from the town staff. So turn it over to town staff at this point.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to present again tonight. We'll go through our budget and you'll see some changes that you've recommended, still some follow-ups, and where we talk about the fund balance, the tax rate, and coming back to you with some of your questions and answer sessions. Tax rate itself, this is in your package just for, but for some information, just to kind of show you where we are on sales tax. Historical, 2020 was 915,000, 2021 was 985,000, 2022 was 1.145, 2023 was 1.235, 2024 1.330, and 2025 was 1.375. Again, I know some people had asked about the sales tax and how it was distributed previously, so that just kind of gives you some information, and we'll hand these out, packets out at the end of the session tonight. But going over the property tax, we told you previously that this is one of the most challenging and complex budgets we've ever dealt with. Every time we turn around and think we've got something figured out, they like to throw us another curveball and wrench. So what this is Senate Bill 889. It has passed the Senate and is now pending in the House vote, which the vote is scheduled for tomorrow. But what that does is talks about the counties this year that had reappraisals, they will not be able to use those numbers. So we're still in a lot of flux on what that does. I've talked with some other areas that are in this same predicament, and what they're saying is that their budget was their recommended budget. So what the bill says is that you have to go back to your previous year, and so what the other managers and I've talked with is they're saying that they're going to propose the tax rate of what would keep it at that same funding level. So for example, in ours, where we talk about, revenue neutral being 27 cents, last year, we were at,
34 cents.
38.
Yeah, 38. So it was at 35, then we went up to 38 on that. So the proposed this year is 31 cents. What that $5.8 million would equate to would be a 45 and a half tax increase, tax cent in that. So again, we're hoping that does not pass, but still it's made it from the House side or from the Senate to the House bill now. So again, we still don't know what that will look like, and so it's still getting down close to the wire on when we would know something on that. So we're basically having to do 3 different budgets and try to give you some numbers of what that does look like and give you some opportunity to think through that. So
So, Mr. Harris, so what you're saying is it would be, instead of 38 cents, it would be 45.5 cents?
Right, for that same dollar amount that you're looking at in the recommended budget currently, so, to equate to the 5.8 million, so. The overview of professional services, some have asked about what all encompasses professional service, and it's different in each department. Just to kind of give you some highlights into each one, not gonna go through them verbatim, but under admin and governing body, which encompasses the planning, finance, and our community center, IT services, you'll hear a little more about that later, our Microsoft licensing, Employee Assistance Network, our audit, NCLM, which is the League of Municipalities, GIS, some security features, all come under admin and governing body. Under public works, you still got some IT services, engineering, stormwater services, water services, technical services. Under police, IT services, drug screening, camera software, radio software. And then, as you heard us talk about before with the PSIP and CDE, comes out of their professional service in there for fire, IT services, respondent support services, county PSIP. Under water administration, distribution, IT, security, engineering, water billing, copying services, lab testing, the 811 locate, utility locate, so those are some of the things that are listed in professional services in itself.
Scotty,
Yes, sir.
quick question. So each department basically has its own IT services budget, correct?
Well, it's split out across all departments, so.
Okay, so we're essentially contracting with a provider and then distributing that cost over departments?
Correct.
Is that
Town
correct?
gets a bill, the town gets a bill, and then we, based on users per department, we allocate across all departments and funds.
Okay,
We have one account with, Epsilon
Yeah.
for our IT services.
now this is very helpful. I appreciate you showing us this detail. Thank you.
And Scotty, talking about the PSIP and the CDE for the police department, is that what they told us? Is this what we paid last year? Is this the increase? What are these numbers?
During budget cycle, we got a bill or invoice showing 57,000, I think it was. That sound right, Chief? $57,000. Chief Overland has a meeting with them tomorrow. They're still discussing things, and so, and again, talking about this is where it's complex, and as y'all heard that night, I mean, we tried to ask the hard questions and got avoided answers, in my opinion, on that. But for one, is that 57,000 on top of what we're already paying, which was some of the discussion, and so we've gone back and forth with them, and I have reached out to the county manager for some more manager-on-manager conversations regarding this, and we're working with some of the other municipalities for support and seeing what it looks like in the future. But right now, I mean, that's kind of where they stand, and then and the gist of it is that, you know, for example, once I got that last invoice, one of the things on it was uniforms at $300. Why am I paying for uniforms? I mean, it's one thing, everything from training, services, and things like that. So, I mean, and that's where we started taking a deeper dive into it of what are we actually being charged for, and trying to ask for more of an itemized breakdown, and then working with our surrounding municipalities to see what it looks like for them moving forward. So,
All right, thank you.
yes, ma'am. For our countywide fire tax district, again, another one of those challenges that's not set in stone yet and ironed out. The county manager did present her recommended budget to council or the commissioners on May the 5th. In her recommended budget, I think we were planning on 2.6 originally, is what we were basing our numbers on by not knowing where they were going to land at. Her recommended budget was 2.913. In that piece of it, the county manager's proposed a 11.73 for the single-wide fire tax district. That still has not been adopted, and then there's still questions on what happens if this bill passes, because with that, there is no going back, because you don't have a revow year before that because of the way it was set up on that, where, so there's no way to determine revenue neutral. So that's gonna be another kink in this if this bill does pass as we look at that going forward. So
So
right
was-
now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So was the 11.73 or .1173, was that on the revow? Or was that on the previous numbers?
It's new value.
Yeah, that's new value. That's what her recommended single-wide tax district rate is.
Based on the revaluation
Right.
numbers?
So where we
So
were
probably
12.27
higher.
previously.
If we can't use the reval numbers, then I would anticipate that to be higher, is that right?
We're thinking because there's no revenue neutral to go off of before, so I don't know. And the fire chiefs have met with county commissioners as well as management staff there and explained that they have a concern with this, so we do think that there's gonna be some adjustment in that because this doesn't quite meet what they're asking, and a little later in slides, we'll talk about, some of the other adjustments that they're seeing in there or that we're seeing in that as well as what the fire chiefs feel like should have been in there for their recommended budget to get to where they needed to be. But again, the county manager did recommend, and again, just like with these budgets, it's a recommendation from the manager. The commissioners and council have the opportunity to change it how they see fit and follow that. So there was some, I did watch online with the discussion at their budget workshop session. We're just kind of like here to where they don't take questions, so to speak. And so the fire chiefs were wanting to be able to speak, but it was against their policy there. So they did give them an opportunity to speak at their last council meeting for the public hearing piece of it in public comments. And so there was some, and so basically they elected a spokesperson for that to kind of speak on their behalf. But after that workshop session, the manager did set up one-on-one meetings with all the departments that would like to meet. Chief Canifax and Chief Hunter did go as our representatives to talk with the county manager on what the budget proposal looked like for us moving forward.
Okay, two more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The 57%, is that the amount of calls that were outside the city limits?
No, what that funding is, that's a cost share funding model, where the county right now is contributing 57% of our budget, and we're asking us to pay the 43% of that. So the call volume right now has been running about 50-50 for our North Buncombe district to our in-town district. And that was one of the things I asked moving forward is that what is cost share funding going to look like for the municipalities? Us, Black Mountain, how are we going to get there and what is the expectation? So they've come out with a little formula that's basically inputting different weights on, there's basically 5 that they use for everything from parcels, property value, call volume, different things, and they put different weight on each of those to try to come up with a cost share funding model on what that looks like moving forward. And again, this is the first year of it. Before you knew what it was going to be because you had your tax rate and it was 12.27 and you kind of backed into it and that was your dollar amount and dollar figure. If you needed more than that, then you asked for a tax increase. This year, with it being a single-wide tax district and all the departments going after the same pot of money, then what does that look like? So trying to figure that out and use a cost share funding for the municipalities. One, our budget is different than theirs, and so trying to find when that balanced budget is submitted and reviewed, and working through those numbers. So
Okay, so my other question is, I'm assuming this is an operational budget, but not a capital improvement amount, or is it both?
it's kind of both because we did have to list capital in there, but this year what we listed on the capital was debt services. And then for the past several years, the fire department has submitted to county a 10-year capital plan. And so we do have some of that listed in there and even made a call when we realized that we were going to have to purchase another apparatus outside of the plan scheduled on the replacement schedule. So we've talked about land purchase in there, station building, and apparatus, but it's all listed under debt services on that.
So, but is that part of this 2.9 or is
Yes.
this? Okay,
Yeah, our debt services would be, not the capital piece. So,
Thank you.
all right. Yes, sir.
So Scotty, I know we don't have a crystal ball, but is your prediction that we're gonna have a county-wide fire department? Or are we still gonna have individual departments operating under this tax framework?
Yeah, you still have each department will still have their own identity. The difference in this is that the money is collected in one pot, And then the departments submit their budget just like the municipalities do. And the manager meets with them and determines what is needed in each area, and what can be funded. Do I anticipate some changes as it moves forward with allocation and how it's allocated? Yes, but I don't think they have plans of going to a single county fire department. The money is, in its whole is one. What you may see, because part of the upcoming contract is that what we talked about previously with the 22 people responding to the scene on structure fires and that time distance response.
Yep.
We're, in the contract, we're required to submit data, and as well as a plan every 6 months on how we're gonna get there. So what you'll see in that, I feel, is that they will analyze that data, and if departments are asking for more staffing or more capital to build another station, then the county is gonna look and say, okay, it's all one money, then we will go between you and build a station, and then it's shared amongst both of you, or something like that would be my take on what they're gonna use that data. Coming from this system, we started it in either 98 or 99 in Wake County. We went to it to where now it's still individual departments, but the county does all your purchasing as far as fire trucks. It's got a little Wake County sticker on the back of it. It's got your name on the door. It's titled to the county, but it goes to your department, and it's represented that way. And even when they build a new station, it's got your name on it, but the county funds that capital project for the new station. Do I think they will get there? Yes, but it's gonna be years down the road before they get there, and this is just the first step in it. I mean, one of the things that we see in other counties using this model, for example, if I'm requesting a brand-new rescue truck and a neighboring agency is also requesting a brand-new rescue truck, they may say, okay, we will fund you a region one at a large rescue, and we will fund a smaller medium rescue for the other department, and work together so that everybody's not buying $2 million fire trucks sitting next to each other. So it comes, in my opinion, it's gonna become more of a cost share responsibility and feasibility aspect on it. So, again, that's just my opinion of having come out of this system. But the county has made it clear that they're not trying to get into fire department business as far as starting their own countywide department.
Sorry to be suspicious.
Oh, no, that's fine, but yes. And again, you're not by yourself. A lot of the fire chiefs out there have that same mindset.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is great value in it, everything from bulk turnout gear purchasing to where if one department's buying 2 or 3 sets and another department's buying 10, if you look across the county, and everybody is needing a total of 30, then it's, if you're using that bulk purchase, then it does reduce your cost. And I think that's some of what they're trying to get to with taxpayer dollars is how can we be more frugal with it? How can we be more economically, in that aspect of that? And I think that's the direction they're heading. Again, that's Scotty's opinion, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
So what that does on the 2.9 is or the adjusted fire budget, is currently at 5.12. Because as you can see, they went up on their contribution amount in that, where our original projected numbers were 2.6 and they're at 2.9 now. So and again, those numbers still can fluctuate either way. So, but we are a little more solid on that, we feel like. Which kind of leads us to fire department pay and fire department funding through the county's aspect. What you can see on the first section is is where we are now. The previous councils has always kind of wanted, we didn't want to be at the top, but wanted us to be in the middle, competitive in that aspect. As you've heard previously, the surrounding departments pay overtime after 40. And so trying to be competitive, that is a struggle for our staff because of being in the municipal department. We don't pay overtime after 40. Our overtime is after 106 hours. So that's when the overtime kicked in. What they adopted or what they have proposed in the budget we just talked about with the 2.9 from the county and a total budget of 5.1 is that puts us in this middle column with the pay for firefighters being $60,000, $60,249. So, and then that puts us in the middle of where everybody is compared to other departments. We've reached out to the other departments to ask them what they plan to pay moving forward, especially with most of them hiring additional staffing after July 1. One of the things that Chief Canifax and Chief Hunter from the fire department, when they met with the county and explained to the county some concerns and how can we still remain competitive, with the other departments paying overtime after 40, and what would it take? The county come back and said, we're willing to give you an additional $100,000 in that budget, and still using, again, the cost share funding model, so they would contribute $57,000 to that, to move our salaries up to what would equate to $62,790, which in turn is what it takes for us to be at the same pay rate or close to pay rate to be competitive for the departments that pay overtime after 40. So that's basically what they did, is backed into, okay, if this department, West Buncombe, for example, Williams Creek, any of those paying overtime after 40, if this is their hourly rate to get there to that salary, then with the municipalities paying overtime after 106, then it equates to approximately $21 an hour. So that's what the county was willing to fund us, because they know for recruitment, retention, retaining people, that if we can't be competitive, currently the fire department's down roughly 8 members currently on staffing wise, so that they know as soon as this budget is adopted and all these departments out there already having positions posted, then we may have a mass exodus because people can go next door with that salary. So that was the county's take on, okay, then this is what it would cost to fund you equivalent to the overtime after 40. And so that's what that salary looks like.
Is that mandated by state law, the overtime rules for a municipality versus the county?
It's the 7K exemption status, so it's not mandated by law. It's just like Fair Labor and Standards Act, Fair Labor, and yeah, that one. So basically saying that this is their recommendation. If you want to go above and beyond that, you can, but you're required to meet that so-called as the minimum on that
Do you
aspect.
know why they're different between a municipality and the county?
Because it's a private company, so, and we're considered local government
Right,
business, so,
right.
but like I say, so for any
But
private
the
entity.
private company is taking tax dollars.
Right,
So they have to pay.
Yes.
They have to pay overtime.
Right, they're following the federal overtime law.
right, yes,
So it's broken, the whole thing's broken and it's stupid.
correct.
But what it should be, if they want to, well, it is, right? If they want to control, so anybody who's in the military, you have pay grades, right? I don't care if you're in Okinawa or if you're in Butte, Montana, you get a cost of living for your housing. Everything else is basically the same, and if you're an E3, you're an E3 across the board. So the best thing that could happen is not going to happen. And they're going to take over, the buying. You'll see that. I agree with you. They wouldn't be doing it if that's not where they're headed. And then what they should do is just set the wages and have one, depending on the job, and then we stop stealing from each other. So they dabble in, but this is a good example of government failing badly, so.
And Councilmember, real quick, let me follow up on that. They did try that, because with a pay study.
Yeah.
And the attorneys told them it was illegal for the county to determine what these private
Because they're
corporations
private,
would.
absolutely.
would have to
But,
pay.
yeah, and I agree with you, and what they could do is go, you're not getting any money, and it's all, it's just broken, right? You're correct, and you were correct, they fall under federal law, but if everybody was a county employee, and you didn't have private fire departments, you go, if you have a fire department, fund it yourself.
Right.
So it's just stupid and broken. You can't have a private fire department getting taxpayer money. Imagine if you guys were giving me money, right? It's broken. The system's been broken. Either go all volunteer or go everybody works for the county. There is no private fire departments, and you'd stop stealing each other's help. And it's a simple solution, but there's probably egos and history in the way of progress.
Ms. Shaw.
So I'm just trying to understand the reason that it was not decided to go overtime after 40 is because of the number of vacancies that we currently have, or?
Well, for one, we don't know what that astronomical number would look like currently, if we went to paying overtime after 40 with them being short-staffed, because with as many people working overtime currently. But what this proposal does is gets them to that same equivalent rate of what it would be if we were paying overtime after 40 or matching the other departments. So in that, it gives us a better opportunity to retain our staff instead of them moving to these departments and paying overtime after 40. And then once we get fully staffed, then we have a better opportunity to evaluate that. But clearly in this, you're paying more per hour in this aspect.
Get you there.
So to
Can you
get,
put the slide back up?
So why do hourly firemen not fall under NLRB exempt versus non-exempt treatment?
because it doesn't meet the threshold of the job duties as well as, the wage rate.
It absolutely doesn't meet it.
So,
You and I can go over that. There's been a change, gig jobs along with that exemption. You have to meet 3 specific criteria at the federal level, and a fireman does not meet. A fireman would meet one of them. It's wage. It has nothing to do with your title. If you're not managing people.
Yeah, and I understand,
Yeah.
I understand.
And the federal law
those-
is just bad.
Yeah, I understand those rules. What I don't understand is overtime after 40 not an NLRB structure? Is that elective?
I'm not sure I'm following you. So, I mean, as far as
The
the
state- it's-
Fair Labor Standards Act, I mean, there's a 7K
There's a-
exemption status with municipal and
There's a
local
carve
government.
out, and that's why I was asking if it's state or federal. There's a carve out specifically
For firefighters.
for firefighters as it relates to overtime.
Right.
Okay.
And we'd have to look that up.
Yeah, and that's the 7K exemption status.
And at the end of the day, none of that matters. What I said to Scotty, what I said to previous town managers and fire chiefs is, what matters is what do you have to pay to retain.
Right.
So none of that matters to us, and I just told Scotty I won't get in an argument with like predecessor before. Doesn't I don't wanna hear what they make an hour. What I wanna know is what do they take home, and what do you need to pay them to retain them and keep a good staff.
Yeah.
That's all the machinations he has to go through. What he's saying is if we don't pay, if it 62,790, I'm gonna have trouble keeping and hiring people. Is that what I heard?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, right. How he gets there is,
Doesn't matter.
in my mind, irrelevant. That became the whole, when the public came up here and said, I'm a jerk and we only pay our firemen $14 an hour. I said, no, we don't. They take home X. That, the overtime covers that. So yeah, that's, if Scotty, and what we don't see in there, what's City of Asheville? Because you're competing with them too, right?
They're switching to a different schedule, so we don't have their numbers in
Think of
there.
Asheville, what do you think the equivalent of Asheville? Is it higher, same, or lower? Ballpark.
I would say they're probably a little higher,
Yeah.
but they're also switching to where we're seeing a trend go to this, to the 24/72 schedule.
Okay.
From a mental health perspective standpoint, and also helps with recruitment aspect, but it requires 4 shifts.
Sure.
Versus right now, you're working 3 shifts,
And we
so
don't have
basically
the
you're
staff
looking.
for 3 shifts
No.
even.
And that's who you compete with them as well. That was my only point. But that's what he needs from us is, in his budget enough to pay them so they wanna work here.
That's right. And
Yes.
they wanna stay here. You
And
know,
stay.
And unfortunately, I think we've only had one person to retire from the fire department. And that's just so unfortunate that we have such a great department, but we can't retain people long enough for them to retire from. And shame on us for that. So I think we need to work to make things better for them so that they wanna make a career and stay here.
So a little follow-up off that, and you'll see it in another slide, but just to kind of touch base on it here, if this is direction that you choose to go, obviously, clearly, we've already funded at the 60,249, and the county's willing to give us some additional to get us to the 62,790, and keeping in mind that part of that funding, unlike our other departments, this funding does come from the county as well. So, but for pay parity, as you look at public safety in general, so that we're not trying to separate or get in conflict with department amongst department. In that middle column of what we looked at, if we raise police department salary to 59,000, that would be an additional 15,000 in that needing to raise all their salaries to 59 for entry level. If we move them up to where fire would be at 62, to get them to 61, on top of that 15, it would be an additional 13,400. But we'll talk about that on a couple more slides, but just wanted to let you know that we're still trying to track for pay parity across the board and what that would look like. I'm sorry.
Just on the living wage piece.
I thought it was another, but, yeah, no, that's on the other slide, but, so what we're looking at as well, when we talk about not just trying to do public safety, as some of you are aware, they come out a while back with a living wage, which again is based on 2,080 hours and showing, I think it was like 24.10 an hour. So living wage equates to $50,000. We've got several people in different departments below 50. So in a little bit, you'll see a slide that talks about what it would take to get our people up to the so-called living wage aspect in some of our lower paying departments to be able to do that. We will show you in here what it would take to do that.
Do you have a wage comparison for police departments like you do with the fire departments?
We have reached out to a couple. I can tell you that the most recent one I've seen posted is Black Mountain, and they are extremely short, and they face some other challenges after the hurricane with their building being in the shape it is, and so I won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but that's, it affects morale there. I've talked to one of their battalion chiefs, as well as some of their police officers, and they're operating out of different locations now. But PD there was at $50,000, and if you'll also notice on the fire one, Black Mountain was the lowest paid one on that as well. So they're struggling with recruitment. I mean, fortunately, Chief Oberlin and her team does a great job with recruitment, and a lot of it has to do with culture and as well as pay. But I mean, big thing is culture and people wanting to work there in that environment. So I mean, so those are, we can reach back out and try to get some more on that. But Black Mountain is the most recent department I saw posted. But again, when we looked at the fire side, is that there's so many, we're losing people to the overtime at the 40 incorporated departments. Where law enforcement, you're strictly at a municipality side, so looking at that aspect as well. So, on our recruitment and retention aspect, we were asked to provide some more information on that. What we talked about is being competitive with recruitable salaries to include public works. You'd have tentatively approved some of the positions in there going into the new year, as well as what our people are currently making. So we talked about the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, at the proposed 3%. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but we do what's considered a holiday bonus every year. Currently, it's at $150 for employees with 6 months or less, so those employees on probation. And currently, it's at $500 a year for employees off probation, whether you're 6 months and 1 day or whether you're 23 years here. So what we've looked at doing in there is changing that to $300 and $1,000 respectively. So the employees still with less than 6 months on probation would be $300 a year at the holiday season time in order to help try to offset some of those costs that employees do incur with trying to take care of their families during the holiday season. And that was one reason for paying it out at that time of the year. And then the $500 would go to $1,000. And again, it's not true longevity because you're not really necessarily basing it off years of employees staying here. I mean, we can look at that later, but we felt that this would be a good first step in trying to do something different with some of our retention. Some of the proposed policies amendments with the 2% automatic contribution to our 401k and continue with the up to 6% match. With that, we've got employees that choose not to contribute to 401k. Even if they would just contribute 2%, the town will match 2% or all the way up to 6%. But most of them feel that they can't afford to lose that extra coming out of their take-home check. So that was one of the ways that we saw that we could give back to the employees in itself. And it's an automatic contribution in there. And then they can choose to contribute to it. And if they do, the town will match up to 6%.
Quick question on that.
Yes, sir.
If they don't get vested, what's the vesting period? If they're not matching and it's the town money, what's the vesting period where they don't get it then if they quit or get fired? You know that all? And if you don't know, that's important. If they're not gonna have skin in the game, and I have no problem with what you're suggesting, but there should be, in my mind, you can benchmark it, in private companies for a long time, it was 3 years that when you quit, we kept our money, you got to put what you in it, the interest you earn. Right. But I would just, if they're not gonna have skin in the game, look at some maybe benchmarks for when they,
Right.
yeah. And you may already have it in the plan based on the contribution already, there's probably a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, as far as vested into the retirement system, where you get to take away, it's 5 years on that aspect, but we can find out if the 401k falls under the same thing.
Five would make sense too, if you quit before 5, you don't get it, because it's retirement, it's not a.
Any other questions on that piece of it? All right, so then we also looked at increasing the paternal leave from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, which would be paid leave. Until last year, we had none of it in there. And last year's council chose to go 2 weeks, and there was some discussion around that on where to end up at 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or what. So they ended up at 2 weeks paid. Obviously, you would still be taking your FMLA, but you've got to have enough sick time to take that and to be paid through that. So what we looked in there is increasing that from 2 weeks to 4 weeks of paid leave. Increasing our minimum annual leave from 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and looking at that aspect as accrual of the annual vacation leave for our members. Any other questions on recruitment and retention? Overview of our general fund and capital fire fund request. Police department on capital improvements, $66,627 on security upgrades, roof on the range building, capital equipment of $49,505 for a drone, road barriers, blocking the streets, as you've seen with our holiday parades and different things, and then a speed alert trailer. Under fire on the capital improvement is some rescue equipment totaling $95,000 in streets. Department requested some message boards, which is $24,165. Under stormwater management, $30,000 on some miscellaneous projects there. Grounds maintenance, $83,000, which consisted of playground equipment and some water wheel improvements there. We're still working on that process through FEMA funding there, but also adding some power down there. But the permitting process on getting power down there and still monitoring the flood aspects with that changing. So having to go through the no-rise studies and different things there, but that is still all coming currently out of the FEMA project allocation. Some debt services, $139,200 on vehicles and swap loader, and then loan payments for the fire trucks, $183,280 for a total of $670,777. She asked us to look at what capital expenses would look like in that and changing of the fund balance versus tax rate and breaking that out. So that kind of gives you an overview. Then I'll turn it over to Tanya to talk about the fund balance a little bit, and then it'll go back to me in a couple of slides. So.
All right, so here's a line graph of our fund balance for the past several years, going back to FY
18 looks like.
Yeah, 2018. So the bottom line is our target. That's our 40% of expenditure target. Top line is our balance. So fund balance is only ever calculated once a year on June 30th. So anything that's not spent in your current year budget, to your question last week, any revenues that come in over budget, any expenditures that we keep under budget, all that positive variance goes into your fund balance at June 30th. Nothing automatically goes into your next year's budget unless we come to you with a budget amendment and ask you to reappropriate, which we do every year, because there's always things we've ordered that haven't come in, projects, especially streets paving projects for the past few years. Projects that don't get finished, we'll ask you to let us reappropriate it into the next year. So to explain some of the peaks and valleys here, you remember we used fund balance to completely pay for our community center, which was over $4 million back in 2021. So that's that dip in the middle. We had the ARPA funding for 1 year that was included in our general fund before we transferred it to the water fund to be used towards the expansion. So that's that peak at the top there in FY23. So what we know at FY25, so last June, we know we ended the year and started this year at 5.6, and our target was 3.8. So we had about 1.8 million above our target that we could use. We appropriated, I think we started the year with 1.3 million in the budget. We reappropriated, we had some streets funding that had carried over for a couple of years, almost $1 million, I think. We had some big projects hit. If you remember, we had a sinkhole much of the fire department that was about $100,000 fix. We had the big culvert repair at the lake here. So those are things we've come to you and asked for a budget amendment to pull from fund balance to fund. So currently we're looking at $2.7 million right now in our FY26 appropriated fund balance as a revenue, revenue source. So if we take what we started with, what we know we've appropriated, what do we think is gonna go back, and this is really one of our leaner years. We have gotten projects finished, things have come in, we're not gonna have a lot revert this year as we've had in the past. So I'm predicting that it's only gonna be about $500,000 that goes back in. That's gonna, possibly put us at $3.4 million at the end of June. That 40% target that the auditor talks about to you is a little bit complicated because they're looking forward and looking back to come up with what that 40% target balance. We could possibly be below that this year. It's in your policy that we have a target of 40, but a minimum of 20. And I talked to the auditor just today, and he told me that the LGC's benchmark for municipalities our size is 25 to 30%. So this might be a year that we actually dip below our target, closer to the 25 or 30%. Something to keep in mind is our FEMA funds. We know we're gonna have excess FEMA funds. Just our Category B project alone was about $600,000, and that was all the emergency response that we pretty much covered ourselves. The extra staff time, the use of our equipment, all those things that we claimed, all of our staff time for meetings and all of that. That's all things that we've already paid for and absorbed, so that's money that's gonna come back to us that can replenish our fund balance unless you choose to use it somewhere else. But just wanted to kind of plant that seed and keep in mind that this will be a year where you'll see that number go down for the first time in a while because the projects have been completed. We don't have streets money carrying over. Again, we're not waiting on a garbage truck to come in this year as we have been in the past.
So, Tanya, we were immersed in FEMA accounting this week, or last week. You know, one curiosity is with respect to FEMA funds, are we obligated to show expenditures in the face of funding, or is that gonna be a lump sum that's unrestricted?
When it closes out, it comes to us.
Okay. But it's essentially a dollar amount that we've justified.
Correct,
And that
and we do a single source audit
Yeah.
as well on just on the FEMA aspect.
Our FY '25 audit included a single audit on the FEMA funds, and our FY '26 audit will as well. And then when that project closes out, the excess funds will come back to us.
Okay. But those won't create any freeboard that actually goes back into the general fund for other purposes, correct?
I don't know, this is my first FEMA funding project.
Yeah, no, we were, we were
Haven't gotten that
we were
far yet.
hosed last week with FEMA accounting, and it's like, whatever you say.
Well, I will say, Tanya, that you and your department did an excellent job, and I know that Mr. Harris had a big contribution to that.
Yeah.
And after we learned everything that we did at League of Municipalities, knowing the steps that you guys went to get our money, hats off to you, because you did an excellent job with that.
Is
Thank
your
you.
basic question, at the end of the day, if there's leftover FEMA funds,
Where does it
do
go?
they go back to the federal government, or do we get to keep them for anything
Correct.
we want?
Yeah,
And you were just you were there, what was the answer? You don't know.
We don't know.
we
They
weren't,
didn't clarify.
we weren't told. But one, you know, to Jennifer's point, we listened to the sobbing of Waynesville representatives about how they just couldn't make FEMA work for the town, and they were so frustrated, and they were looking at huge tax increases to fund all of the things that FEMA would have paid for.
Well, they should have had a good town staff then.
We have the money, our funds have been obligated, we've received the funds.
We're not, I bet you a nickel,
There's
none
no
of it's going
given-
back. There's no going
No,
back.
no, it's my understanding
Yeah,
that,
you
because
just
we
can't.
absorbed all that cost, it was our overtime,
And they
it was
audited
our
it.
salary, and it was our
There's
equipment.
not gonna be any extra funds. They submitted line items of what the
Okay, that's my
expenditure.
question.
No, I would be shocked I don't believe anything's coming back.
Yeah, it was project-based awarded, and basically,
And
if you were doing mitigation to stuff, you had to show what that mitigation was gonna be, and if that increased the cost, and it went through all the auditors, so-called auditors for FEMA to approve the projects. Now, we did have to return some money because it was expedited funding that we got early on in the project, which actually floated us through some of it, but that came, that was the funding that we were able to get probably within the first 2 to 3 weeks of FEMA arriving, based off of information we submitted them on the debris removal as well as our forms being completed and stuff moving forward. So we got that, and we had to keep that money in a non-interest bearing account because we couldn't make the interest off of it, and then return the excess back to them off of that. So that was one of the ways of tracking. So as far as us having to pay FEMA back, we feel like we've paid back everything that they are expecting us to pay back. And it was because the debris threshold didn't meet what they had obligated our funding for.
Okay. No,
And
that's clear.
anything like our insurance ended up covering a couple things that FEMA had also reimbursed us for, we had to return that money as well. But there's nothing else that we'll need to send back.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Anything else on fund balance?
Yeah, I wouldn't, without seeing line item by line item, as I said in a previous council meeting, and I get it, it's complicated. I don't want to use fund balance to pay the light bill.
I agree.
So none of us should be doing that at our home, right? So the 2.7, you go, it's for an emergency, you point out, obviously, that the community center was paid for with our savings account, and that's the type of thing that your savings account should be used for. So I heard you say 2.7 coming out of the fund balance in the budget?
No, right now we're at 1.12,
Okay, did I miss it?
I believe.
Okay.
And like the previous slide showed you, 670,000 of that is capital.
Right, so the other's not capital.
It's not, but you're always, if you don't use, you're always gonna have some going in at the
Yep,
end of the year.
yep.
If you don't put that in your budget, so you're putting it in the budget to help you balance it, but you're really not using it.
Yep.
Because it's gotta go back
Yeah,
in.
it's
the
a,
next-
it's a,
into the
it's a
next-
snapshot, like you said, and they do it at the end of the year. If you asked her, and I used to do that to her, I asked her what the fund balance, and she's like, you need to take it once a year at the same time. It's almost like a trial balance. Yeah, it's just a snapshot, so.
And the other thing to remember is you're possibly increasing the tax rate this year. You're already sitting, or we ended last year above our target. I can raise questions. Why are you increasing tax rate at the same time you're sitting on extra
Because we want to buy a new building.
savings?
We want the savings to grow. Don't you want your savings to grow? Don't you people want your savings to grow? You don't want your savings to
Well,
shrink.
You don't want fund balance increasing on the same year you're increasing the tax
Yeah.
rate. Right.
Well, also,
Maybe.
we had the fire truck issue where we didn't get the insurance money to cover the cost of the truck, so that was able to come out of fund balance, so.
Not, well, we haven't gotten it yet.
But will,
But, yeah,
and that's in my mind,
That's
it's an
appropriate.
appropriate use of
that's what's
fund
for,
balance.
so.
Not paying salaries, not paying light bills, none of that jazz. And we basically have to rely on you guys. I mean, you're in the weeds, you do this day in and day out. We come once a month and act like you don't know what you're doing and question you, and then go, I hope you do what you say you're gonna do.
No, I can say with confidence, we're not using fund balance to cover our operating expenses.
Good, thank you. I will hold you to that.
Any other questions? On revenue adjustments and possible adjustments, you asked us to provide some, what it would look like with fund balance, with tax rate, different things. So what we've done in here, property tax rate adjustment, we did get some numbers back from the county, and they're expecting what they told us previously. They're expecting it to be $7,000 over that adjustment they had give us previously, because it was still fluid in that. Even though they're still going through the appeal process, this is kind of where they feel comfortable that we're landing at on our county. And granted, these are based off of what we presented to you before. So on our county fire department budget adjustment, $254,000. And then another possible adjustment of $100,000. That's where we talked about previously of what we were at 2.6, then it went to 2.9, and now the county's saying they can do another 100,000 to be able to use towards salary. So the additional fund balance max of 1.5 million, which equals up to $250,000 in that aspect. Some recommended and possible changes to expenditures. We talked about, previously, the Public Works Maintenance Technician was funded at a half a year in the original recommended budget from the manager. We talked about increasing that to fund it for a full year, to be able to do a July 1 hire instead of a January 1 hire. That would take $38,000, which it would include salaries and benefits in that. Retention bonuses, $56,000, which is basically the holiday bonus that we use in there, as we talked about explaining in a previous slide, changing that from $500 to $1,000 for those employees that've been here longer than 1 year. Salary adjustments for the fire department, $77,100, we're using county funding to offset that. Then salary adjustments for the police department, and again, where we talked about for pay parity, if you went to that middle column that we were at before, which will put police department at $59,000, that's $15,200. If you increased it to just over $60,000, then that would be $28,600 to get them to that pay parity. Where we talked about the living wage for people whose annual salary is below $50,000, that living wage would cost us $22,300, increasing that in the budget in itself. So we talked about the Main Street Christmas tree project. We've got $20,000 in there for that, and did talk with a vendor today on that, and that would cover a 20-foot Christmas tree. And for outside funding, there's been some discussion on that, so we've got that listed as to be determined, where previously we had $6,000 for the senior meals, we had $2,000 for the WEDAC, and then $6,000 for the WBA. So with that discussion, we've got that left blank right now, waiting on some direction guidance. So the possible totals in that is $151,000 up to $242,000. So again, that talks about using the differences in where you wanted public safety to land at for the pay parity across there to looking at that aspect. So, any questions on that slide?
The Christmas tree.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about the Christmas tree. Is that, what is that?
It's a 24-foot so-called type of artificial tree. Basically, the company is local. They actually have one, and they can do everything from, we buy it outright. The first year we can lease it from them, or they can do it pay as you go, and then after so many years, we own it. She's looking at running those numbers, and that includes, it will come with the lights on it, as well as the star on top, and then if you wanted to add any other decoration, they could do it. They're local here. I mean, they're right down here on Merriman in the old Sample Group building, but they actually store one there that is 40 foot that goes up to the Hard Rock Casino or Hard Rock Cafe, whatever it is in Bristol, Tennessee. So they actually, local, and they do that one for them and showed us pictures of that put up. We don't need a 40-foot tree there by any means. But so that's what she was looking at, is she was going to take a look at that space for us so that she would have an understanding what the diameter is on that, as well as looking at that. But it was $20,000 or 19 something for the 20-foot tree, looking at that aspect, and she recommended 24, 28. Yes, sir, so something along those lines. You can have panel-looking ones, or you can have branch-looking ones, and I've got some pictures I can send you as well that she sent me today of the one that they use for the Hard Rock building up there. So, but it is a nice-looking tree, looking at that aspect, so.
Can I be a smart aleck?
Yes, sir.
So we have a holiday parade, but we're gonna have a Christmas tree? Well, if we're having a holiday parade, we don't need a Christmas tree.
It's for the candlelight stroll and the tree lighting with that.
I said I'm being a smart aleck.
Well, I'm really smart aleck back to you.
Let's have a Christmas parade and a Christmas tree.
I agree.
And Councilmember Barnett, that was one of the first companies that we did look at, because trying to buy it on holiday, but even that, they were higher than what this company has quoted us that's local. So I was surprised at their price based off what because those numbers I give you to start with, when we did the original presentation from the 16 to 20-foot tree, even with the ones that were on sale, they were more than what we were looking at down here. So but yeah, that is one of the companies that we were looking at originally as well, so. On our original proposed budget, we've covered some of these numbers. On the original town manager's recommended budget, totaling $19,867. With a fund balance, general fund balance uses of 1.25. You asked us to come back with you and show you some difference on what the tax rate would look like, and that is at a 31-cent tax rate, and then dropping or lowering the fund balance. So to get the town manager's updated recommended budget would be $10,903,278 out of the general fund, $5,080,789 out of the fire fund. And again, keep in mind that part of that is contributed from the county. Water fund is $4,276,537 for a total of $20,260,604. That is the tax rate after the reval at 32 cent. Tax rate if they make us go back to the previous rate, it would cost 45.5 cent on your tax rate to get to that number. And again, this puts the use of the general fund balance at 1.12. Water rate fund is plus or minus 5%. And the use of the water fund would be $660,000. Some of those items included in this piece, as we talked about, that we've got the updated information from the county on the tax rate or tax revenue increase of $7,000. Fire fund presented budget is $254,000. PD salaries for pay parity, $15,200, and the retention to holiday bonus in that, $56,000. Public works employee increasing from a half year to a full year for the maintenance tech is $38,000. The living wage increased to $50,000 salaries, $22,300 for our Main Street holiday tree is $20,000. RT services, they did reach out to us. For those of you not familiar, Epsilon has been bought by another company, and that new ownership is doing things differently. They have reached out to us, and we started meeting with them several weeks ago because we explained we were going into the budget process and needed some updated numbers. They have now come back this past week stating there's going to be a $60,000 increase in services. For water engineering services, $67,000. So the added expenditure for general funds, $179,200. Added expenditures from the fire fund, $14,520. And added to expenditures from the water fund is $84,780.
Can I pause for 1 second? Because, so you're not gonna know off the top of your head, what do we spend with Epsilon a year? Ballpark?
New rates,
No, I wanna see what the price increase is.
old rates?
Yeah, $250,000.
No, not that much. It's going up to about 10,000 a month, 120,000 a year. But that's,
I mean, are they hitting you,
that's
us
our
with,
monthly.
are they hitting
that's
us
not-
with a 50%? So the 60, you said, increase from Epsilon's gonna be 60K.
It's 5,000 a month more than.
And what were we
we're
paying?
5,000.
So it's
That's
it's a
double.
double.
It's doubled.
They're telling you they're gonna
counting-
double.
They're counting all users now, where they used to count what they called support users, wasn't every single user, it was the ones calling for support. And now they're counting every user in the town, every full-time employee as.
Well, every full-time employee has access to a
User.
user and an email, right? I mean, we use them too, is
Yeah,
why.
yeah, but they have emails.
Right.
That's not Microsoft licensing.
Right, no,
just
that's the
Epsilon's
licensing,
service.
correct, and you can buy different tiers of licensing if they just need an email and all that. But I'm just, so they're doubling, so they don't think they have any competition in town, or have we gotten comparable rates?
I've got a Teams meeting scheduled on the 20th.
Okay.
With another IT provider because I wasn't happy,
I'd be firing.
with several things. One being the week before the hurricane, or the week of the hurricane.
Yeah.
When we had some information on the dark web and had meetings with, the National Guard and Nickel Jesus, who is the state's representative, for your cybersecurity aspect. They had some concerns from that aspect, with what services we were being provided and what we were being paid for. So I felt that it was, in order to be good stewards, to make sure that we're getting a fair comparison. I scheduled a Teams call with another IT provider after this last round when we clearly told them that we couldn't afford to go up anymore.
100% increase.
So,
Are they
yes.
storing stuff for the town on the cloud?
They're going to that, they're vacating where they were, and I don't know if it's a security aspect to say where they were in the building in Asheville, but, they're vacating that and removing servers from there and trying to go more to the cloud
And that's,
aspect,
that-
so.
yeah, that's not easy to switch, and they have responsibility to switch, but them doubling it, either they were highly undercharging you, and you'll know that when you get some quotes, or, yeah, we spent a lot more than that with them, and if they tried to double, we'd be firing,
Yes.
on the spot.
So what you've got up here, does this include the additional positions? I know the police department asked for 2 additional positions. Is that in here too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But what this does account for, and then you'll see it in the next little block there, where you want to land on that. So all those positions that were in the recommended budget, they are in here. Like I said, this is just some changes of looking at living wages, moving PD up to parity. And then the next little block talks about what it would look like with just a public safety piece of that aspect, and moving law enforcement up to 61,000, fire to 61,000, PD to 60,000. So again, and that, if you went that route with the added county funding, the general fund, 10,914, 699, fire fund, 5,179,210, water fund, 4,276,537, for the total of 20,370,466.
I'm gonna interrupt you again. So that's the number we asked him to come up with. Okay, I could care less what the county does, you know, or what the state does. So you go, that's the number he wants. We said, tell us what you want. How it plays out is irrelevant. The state's gonna pass a law, and he still wants, or needs 20,370,000, right? 440. Doesn't matter. It really is irrelevant, the state, until they put it on the ballot in November, and then they're in trouble if that passes. So, you know, that's, Peter's not here, you go, you know, do you want to give them $20,370,446? Yes, okay, the rate will come, he won't know the rate until they pass this, so you go, they give us a good thing, you go, you corrected me, right, it was 38 last year?
Yes.
Is that correct? So worst case scenario, they're thinking 45.5, right? So it's 20% price increase. So everybody in town pays 20% more taxes to live in the beautiful town of Weaverville. And they love it, and they all tell me they're willing to pay more taxes. I haven't met a person in Weaverville except for my father-in-law who wants to pay less taxes. Okay? So I don't want to pay more taxes, but that's the number, and we're done. All in favor of giving him the 20,370,000, say aye, right, then he'll figure out the rate. It's that simple. We overcomplicate things sometimes. The state's gonna do what they want, the county's gonna do what they want. Do you wanna fund that? And my concern was what I had said to you, and now we got you on record, that we're not using our savings account to pay the power bill. Did I summarize that pretty simply?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So again, I guess the direction and bringing this back to you, and then we got some stuff on rates behind that, but just, we wanted to paint the picture of, especially with the challenge of pay parity as far as police and fire, we didn't want some discontent or separation there, since part of that funding is coming from the county. Where do you want to land with paying our police officers versus our fire side? And so if we get that extra $100,000 that allows us to pay equivalent to what the overtime after 40 for fire department would be, then are you comfortable with us moving that additional money in there as well for PD salaries, which would be the 15 and then the 13, which is for the $28,000 additionally to bring them up, so that we've got that competitive market for public safety in there, so.
And
I
for
think
some,
we've got to be competitive. I mean, we've
Is that
got to
in-
retain and attract our officers and our fire department base, so.
Is that in your number of 20,370,446? It's
Yes.
inside of that.
Yes,
Stop selling.
yes.
They all want to give you 20,370,446. Everybody's smiling. You don't need to sell it anymore.
All right, next slide, thank you very much. Tax rate revenue, that was kind of breakdown, you've seen this slide most time on what the 4 cent looks like at the 747,500. That's our 38-cent rate. Revenue neutral is 27 cent, and then our proposed rate. So, and we're going to go with the 20 million. And we thank y'all, and we appreciate y'all, and y'all have a good night. Any other questions or anything before we turn it over to the public comments, in this aspect?
I have a good question. Do we know what the other municipalities' tax rates are? I mean, I'm sure it's out there, and I probably could have looked.
As far as what their rate is, that I do not know, but we did reach out to them, before this process started and asked whether they plan to go revenue neutral or what their rate would be, and everybody was in the 3 to 4 cent tax
Or
increase
even
rates.
in years past, like where do we fall within our tax rate compared to our other municipalities?
We went 9 years without raising taxes, so last year was the first year we did that. We did a 3 cent last year, and so, like I say, some of them are 60-something cent. So you're not comparing that, so only thing I could look at is what kind of rate increase they were proposing, and
Yeah.
everybody was around 3 to 4 cent is what they were looking at.
It's an impossible thing to compare because it's stupid. It's based on the value of your property made by somebody who wants your money.
Yeah, right.
So Irwin, Tennessee's tax rates, their appraisals are pretty spot on, and they take 25% of the value of it and charge $2 per hundred. So you go, what am I writing a check for? And the houses are cheaper in Irwin, so it's a tough.
Yeah.
It's so tough. You could go, oh, Biltmore Forest has a lower rate, but they have $2 million homes.
Right.
And they don't necessarily need any more services, so it's a tough thing to get.
Yes, and like Woodfin has a lower rate, but fire is outside of, it's
That's
not
right.
part of the municipality. So you pay a Woodfin tax and you pay a fire
I got you.
district
Yeah.
tax. So
It's
it is
tough.
really hard to find someone just like us that has water and fire and police to make that comparison.
Well, I think it's important that we maintain the services that we're offering. We don't want to cut services to anybody, and we want to attract and retain our employees, and I think that I'm fine with what we're doing.
Any other comments from council? This time? No? Have any public input?
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't see any there.
Darla asked to,
Mr. Mayor, I think Phil or Mark had a question, I think, so.
Yeah.
I have a couple of topics for update for council, whenever you're ready, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay. Darla Letourneau, 16 Lakeshore Drive resident. I don't have any prepared comments, but one thing that you all talked about in the last 3 conversations on the budget was about kind of a future vision, that it wouldn't just be a one-year kind of look at the budget, that there were things that you were saying, well, we can't do this year, but we are really planning, I'm thinking about sidewalks and some of the other projects. We're getting ready to do that next year. You know, we're gonna invest in some study, whatever. I just think it's important in the way you package this and talk about it to keep that broader perspective. You know, I know in the end, you're passing this year's budget, but I think, you know, it would be helpful to kind of, I'm not quite sure how you're gonna wrap it into it, but to kind of talk about, this is the beginning of other things, like the buildings we need for a new location for public safety. I mean, some of those things, we're making kind of investments this year, but you don't see the big picture in what that's gonna look like in year 2 or 3. So any way you can kind of keep that message about it's a multi-year journey that we're on. We're gonna have tax increases again next year. You know, it's kind of like, there's a plan. It's not all fleshed out, but we know we have to make some big investments in the next couple of years. So, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Darla.
Let me ask some other folks here that might want to say something. Yes, sir.
Who's that?
My name is Al Root from 27 Valley Drive. I heard Andrew say that some people might say he's a jerk. I was going to say, I thought that was in their public records.
Use your choice.
Yeah, there you go, Al. Thank you. I forgot.
Okay, Phil.
Yeah, so a couple of WEDAC updates. We did the kickoff meeting with Urban 3, and you may recall we won a $45,000 grant to pay the consultants. They're probably going to target September for their final report, but right now they're waiting for the county to basically hand them numbers.
That's nice.
And, you know, I think appeal closed May 5th, so we still have a 60-day window, so they're essentially delayed in terms of their startup. The other update I wanted to mention is Jennifer and I met with the Friends of the Western North Carolina Museum of History and Culture at Land of Sky, 2 weeks ago? So, you know, this is a group that's trying to find a property to build a regional museum slash actually tourist draw. We have officially requested Thermo Fisher Scientific gift 33 acres to the town of Weaverville. We don't know what the answer is. You know, it's a, you know, we may be totally disregarded, but we also may be surprised at some point. You know, they may decide that, yeah, this is a great cause, a museum that serves 36 counties in Weaverville, you know, again, could be a phenomenal place to visit. So anyway, we'll wait to hear. We'll let you know if we get brushed off, or if they want to talk to the mayor and say, you know, let's talk about how this would play out. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Can I make one announcement?
Sure.
So I know our next meeting is moved up a week because of Memorial Day, but we're also having a community event with Advent Health on the 18th at the Community Center from 3 to 6. So if anyone would like to come and participate in that, please do.
Will there be ice cream?
No, sir.
Any further business to come before council? That said, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.